The moonlight shined down on the barn, illuminating the field in its bright blue light. I walked through the tall grass, basking in the moonlight as I approached the large white 2-story farmhouse. Hunter was outside, leaning against the side of the house. I approached him and frowned, glaring as I eyed the small cigarette in his mouth. He puffed out a bit of smoke before taking it out, shooting me a careless glance.
You got a problem?
Is that weed? I asked, crossing my arms.
Nope, just plain old nicotine.
He said, taking the cigarette out of his mouth and rubbing it against the wall. He then tossed it aside, leaning back against the wall and sighing. I walked up the steps of the patio and asked, "So what's going on? Is there anyone in the house?"
I dunno. I was gonna go in, but...
But what? I asked.
I didn't want to go in alone.
He admitted. You're scared? I asked. I never thought Hunter, of all people, would be scared, especially of something like this.
I'm not scared, but I've seen enough horror movies to know that you should never scope out a house full of monsters in it alone. One screw up, and by the time anyone gets here, I'll be dead.
He said. I walked past him towards the window and glanced inside. The lights were all on, meaning whoever was living there was probably still inside, but judging how they hadn't noticed our presence, either they were indeed gone, or they were dead. How about I go in with you? I suggested. He looked up at me and chuckled.
Really? You?
Is there something wrong with me? I asked, a bit offended. Hunter shook his head.
No, that's not what I meant. You're just not the type to, well...
I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty. Besides, you can teach me how to use a gun, I said, pulling a small black handgun out of my waistband. He took a few moments before shrugging.
Yeah, all right. But only if you listen to whatever I say, okay? I don't want you getting hurt.
I nodded to him, and he approached the front door, twisting the knob to check if it was open. He then pushed it forward, the old wooden door creaking open for us to enter. Hunter then pulled his pistol out of his waistband, stepping inside slowly. I walked behind him, mimicking his movements. The inside of the house gave off a rustic and country vibe, with the cow head mounted on the wall, a brick fireplace in the living room, and an artistic figure of a horse painted on the wall above a mounted pitchfork.
Hey, take a look!
Hunter joked, picking a large skull mask of a deer off the wall and putting it over his face.
Maybe I should go and scare Spencer.
Please don't, I told him. He's been through a lot.
Huh, he's been through a lot? No offense, sweetie, but he's been using the lot of us as a meat shield.
Hunter commented. What's that supposed to mean? I asked, grabbing the TV remote and turning on the TV. I glanced at the show, watching as a small mouse raced away from a larger cat, a mallet in hand. Hunter sighed as he set down the mask.
Anakin's been shot, Andrew's got a stab wound, you nearly blew up, and Quinn lost a frickin' eye. And then look at me, I got a bullet wound in my shoulder.
He pulled his jean jacket to the side, showing the hole in his shirt that had been torn through by a bullet days ago. He had kept the shirt on, despite the blood stain, but swapped out his vest for a cute-looking jean jacket. Look, just because he hasn't gotten hurt doesn't mean he's not been through shit. You guys are at least used to hanging on to the bare minimum. Spencer's a bit...
Weak? Wimpy?
He suggested. I glared in his direction. No, Hunter. He's a computer kid. He's not used to going out and doing all this stuff.
Yeah, I know.
He said, rubbing the back of his head.
I'm sorry. I'm just a bit out of it. Honestly, he's a pretty useful kid. Kinda scrawny, but useful.
If it weren't for him, space would be dead, I told him.
But Isabella would be alive.
He replied.
Like I said, can't please anyone. I kinda prefer space, though. She's a lot nicer. Isabella was kind of intimidating.
I stifled a laugh. Intimidating? You were intimidated by her?
Hey, I may look tough, act tough, and be tough, but that doesn't mean I don't get scared of stuff. Girls in charge, they kinda turn me on.
He said awkwardly. I sighed, walking past him up the stairs. The two of us walked up the stairs, heading to the second floor of the house. And halfway up the stairs, we could hear footsteps. Hunter immediately stepped in front of me, holding up his gun as we heard a faint snarl. He continued forward, freezing in place as one of the creatures stumbled over to the top of the stairs.
Get back!
Hunter shouted, shoving me against the wall. It looked towards us and growled, stepping forward down the stairs. The two of us stopped against the side as the creature tripped and rolled down the stairs, slamming its head into the wall at the bottom. Hunter then rushed down the stairs, only for a second one to grab him by the shoulders and knock him against the wall. Hunter struggled, trying to pull the creature off him as the mutant snapped its sharp fangs at his neck. He looked down to the knife on his belt, but could not take a hand off the monster to grab it. I scrambled for my gun to shoot it, but didn't pay attention to the mutant crawling up the stairs behind me. When I raised the gun to shoot, the mutant grabbed my ankle, pulling me to the ground. I fell against the stairs and kicked backwards, my foot slamming into the mutant's face. I then spun around, blasting the monster in the face with my pistol. Without wasting another second, I rushed up the stairs and fired 2 shots at the mutant. One missed, but the second hit him in the chest and knocked him backwards. It gave Hunter a chance to pull out his knife, grabbing the forehead of the mutant and stabbing the blade into his temple. The mutant fell limp in Hunter's grasp, falling to the ground like a rock. Hunter stood in front of me, breathing heavily as he wiped the blood off his hands and onto his pants. He was sweating, both from the close encounter and trying to hold off the mutant. He took off his jean jacket, tossing it aside, and unbuttoning his shirt, which was now torn. Oh, whoa, I thought. He, actually looks kind of hot.
Thanks for that.
Hunter muttered, breathing heavily.
You're a good shot.
Thanks, I said. That was a bit... A sickening feeling suddenly filled my stomach when I looked down on the dead body, blood pooling up beneath its head and dripping down the stairs. I stepped over to the laundry basket hung on one of the doors and vomited, the baked chips and ramen cups I'd had earlier leaving my stomach. Hunter stood beside me, pulling my hair out of my face and patting my back as I threw up for a good 30 seconds or so. When I was done, I stood up, grabbing a rag laying on the floor beside the basket and wiping my mouth. Thanks, I muttered, my cheeks rosy red.
No problem,
he said, ruffling my hair.
You good now?
I nodded. I guess I don't feel right after killing someone like that. What if a cure gets developed?
They're already dead.
He told me as I knelt down beside the body. I reached into the pocket of his torn jeans, pulling out a wallet. The ID read Randy Jackson. Maybe, but they're still people. They used to be people, I said. And now, all of a sudden, they're dead.
Well, think of it like this. Think of it as every time you kill one, you're freeing their soul.
Freeing their soul? Since when were you religious? I asked curiously.
I'm not religious. I'm just trying to make you feel better. I don't want you to be uncomfortable killing those things, especially if this thing turns global.
He explained. I smiled. Well, if this happens again, I'll have you to calm me down. He turned away from me, nodding as he glanced down the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
The second floor consisted of a short hallway, 2 doors on the wall to the right and 1 to the left. A big window was placed on one end of the hallway, 2 on the side where we were standing on. A long blue carpet stretched along the hardwood floor, blood staining the middle of it. Once again, the house gave off a rustic feel. I turned towards the window beside me, glancing out upon the field. I could see light shining out from the barn, along with a faint light from inside the RV. Beside the barn, I could also see Andrew and Spencer. The 2 were digging Isabella's grave together. Though Spencer was clearly struggling, however, he hadn't given up, and was actually holding a conversation with Andrew, it seemed. It's nice to see the 2 of them working together for once, rather than bickering like an old married couple, I said with a smile, as Hunter glanced out the window at them as well.
Yep, maybe when we find a new place, the two of them will move in and seal the deal.
Hunter commented with a smirk.
Imagine Spencer in a dress shouting to Andrew about his in-laws.
We both burst into laughter at the image of Spencer in a dress having a domestic argument with Andrew. As we calmed down, Hunter commented,
Nah, in all seriousness, Spencer would never leave you, especially for Andrew.
I nodded awkwardly. Yeah, I know. Hunter then frowned.
What? Do you want him to?
No, it's not that. Sorry. I don't know, I want something more. He never pays attention to me, and he's always on his damn game, buddy. The only alone time I get to spend with him nowadays is if we play multiplayer, I explained.
Okay, dude, that's pretty sad, even for someone like Spencer. If you're upset with him, why don't you dump his ass?
He asked as he leaned against the wall. Because even if he's changed, I don't want to just end it. I miss the old Spencer and how he was before. Rushing to school every day, excited to spend our first period talking about video games and anime and joking about memes. And then we'd walk home together, cuddle on the couch, and watch a movie or two together.
Well, then talk to him. Tell him how you feel. Seriously, I've dated like 6 girls before, and each time I ask Anakin for advice, he always says the same thing. Communication.
He explained. I nodded. Maybe tomorrow. It's late, and I'm sure by the time he's done with Andrew, he'll be ready to pass out.
That's what she said.
He joked with a snicker, walking past me. The two of us entered one of the rooms, Hunter drawing his gun as he entered the first. However, the room was barren of life. The only 2 beings inside were us, and 2 corpses lying on the bed. I covered my nose with my shirt, Hunter cringing from the pungent smell as he held up his jean jacket to block it. 2 bodies lay on the bed, a man and a woman. While their bodies had not decomposed to the point of being a pile of gooey black mush, they had indeed been there for a while. Lying in one's hand was a black pistol, a second handgun on the floor beside the woman.
Double suicide,
Hunter commented. I nodded, looking past the bodies at the set of stairs leading up to the attic. Hunter approached the stairs slowly, climbing them up and rolling onto the floor with a groan as he reached the top. I followed behind him, watching him slowly rise back up and approach the window at the end of the room. He sat down, staring out the shattered window at the night sky. I passed by the old boxes and antiques, sitting beside him to admire the beautiful sight. The stars were especially nice tonight. It was a bit breezy, but the cold didn't bother me that much. I crossed my arms, trying to conserve heat as I stared into the distance.
You cold?
He asked, noticing me trying to resist shivering. I shrugged, and he immediately stood up and took off his jean jacket. He gave it to me to use as a blanket, and I blushed slightly and looked at him as he sat back down. Why? Aren't you cold too? I asked, a bit confused. He shrugged back.
Nah, I'm good. And you need it better than I do.
He did seem to be telling the truth. He was still a bit sweaty, and I could tell he felt a little warm. Are you okay? I asked. You seem tired.
I don't do well without sleep, and haven't had much time to just sit back and relax. At least, not until now,
He said, as he laid back against a dusty beanbag chair. I frowned and began to stand up. Oh, did I interrupt you earlier? I'm so sorry. If you want me to
No, stay. It's nice having company that isn't totally annoying.
He said, shooting me a relaxed smile. Oh, well, I'm proud to not be totally annoying, I joked. He chuckled lightly before scooting towards me, pointing out the window.
Florida's only a day's drive south. Before we know it, we'll be sailing off into the sunset,
He said with a relaxed smile. I sighed. I guess... What if...
No more what-ifs. No more doubts. You're going to get on that boat. And you are going to survive, Maddie.
I grinned faintly, blushing as he grabbed my hand, tightening his grip confidently. I looked up at him and giggled, him chuckling as he looked back at me. Our eyes met, and before I knew it, our faces were only inches away from each other. I could faintly smell the scent of his cologne hidden underneath his natural musk, but nevertheless, I felt a warm tingling inside of me. I knew I shouldn't be doing this, but I didn't care. Hunter, Before I could utter another word, his lips were on mine. He had moved in fast, giving in to my emotions just like I was choosing to. I should have pulled away, but instead chose to reach forward, wrapping my arms around his waist and pulling him closer to me. I reciprocated the kiss, the feeling of butterflies in my stomach returning for the first time in so long. It felt like an eternity until we broke apart, and he shot me a nervous smile. Never before had I seen Hunter look as vulnerable as he did now, and that sight made my heart pound. He smiled awkwardly.
That was...
Yeah, it was, I replied, before looking past him to see a bandage on his arm. Had that always been there, I thought? Hey, are you hurt? Let me see your arm, I said, reaching out to grab his hand. He quickly pulled away from me.
No, it's fine. Just a little cut I got from this old rusty shack. Nothing antibiotics and a nice little bandage won't take care of.
Are you sure? I asked. He nodded, smiling at me before standing up.
Positive. I'm gonna go change real quick. Give me a heads up if things go to shit.
Hunter stood up, stepping out of the attic and leaving me sitting there, alone and confused. I like Spencer, or at least I did before he changed, but now what? Do I break up with him, or do I try and ignore it? I asked myself quietly, fighting my subconscious. If I break up with him now, it'll just cause more chaos. I stood up, stepping out of the alleyway to find him. I walked down the stairs, holding my shirt over my mouth as I stepped past the dead bodies. I emerged into the hallway to see a light shining out from beneath one of the doors. It hadn't been like that before. Do I reject him, or do I tell him to keep quiet, or do I just tell him how I feel? I asked myself, trying to come to a decision. I reached out, grabbing the doorknob and twisting it open. I was prepared to make my decision, but when I opened the door, I froze. The door slowly creaked open, and I stood there, looking forward at a shirtless Hunter, his bloody bandage in hand. Hunter? He tried to cover it immediately, but I had already seen what he was hiding. From the other side of the room, I could make out 3 bloody claw marks and several purple veins running across the skin from the wound. We both made eye contact, staring into each other's eyes with a look of fear. I turned around and prepared to take off to the others, but he grabbed my arm before I could and yanked me into the room. The door slammed shut behind me.
Maddie, you...
Hunter, we have to tell the others. Maybe we can...
No, you cannot tell anyone. It won't be long till I'm one of those things. But if you tell the others, they'll kill me. I'm not ready to die yet, especially not on my own terms.
He explained to me, but...
No, Maddie, please. I want you to promise to me you won't tell them. Not until after I'm gone.
He said to me,
I'm already a dead man, and nothing is gonna change that.
I promise, I said to him, shaking his hand and regretting it immediately. He smiled, pulling me into a strong hug, and as I rested my head on his shoulder, I thought about any other possibilities, but I couldn't deny it. As much as I wanted to, I couldn't deny the truth. Hunter was infected, and there was nothing we could do about it.